Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. We spend a lot of time here on the show talking about how fans really are demanding a Black Panther movie, a Captain Marvel movie, and I feel, and some of you agree, a Black Widow movie. And this is something Kevin Feige has actually spoken to recently, being like, we hear the fans and we are in fact surprised at how vocal they are about seeing these characters get their own films. But another character that has a strong base of support and a growing fan base that's clamoring to see this character adapted in other medium is Miles Morales. And of course I'm talking about the black, well he's actually half black, half Hispanic, Spider-Man from the Ultimate Comics line over at Marvel that Brian Michael Bendis created. And it looks like everybody's intense interest in this character, and maybe also the fact that the Spider-Man franchise isn't working out so well right now, it looks like Miles Morales might finally be starting to get the opportunities that we'd like to see him get. Now, not quite at the movie level yet, but I think this is a step in the right direction, and that's, as you probably have heard, he's going to be appearing on the animated series, Ultimate Spider-Man, and they're doing a whole season where Peter Parker is going to go to alternate dimensions and meet other Spider-Mans. Actually, Otto Octavius, Superior Spider-Man, is doing that right now in the comics as well, in kind of a flashback story, which is quite good, so I actually recommend that you go check that out as well. But he's going to be doing it, the Peter Parker version, in the animated series, and Miles Morales will be voiced by none other than Donald Glover, which is really great, because none of this would have happened, including Miles Morales, if not for Donald Glover. As you might recall, he's the one who said, hey, if you're rebooting Spider-Man, why not make it really different and have a different ethnicity for Spider-Man? Maybe black. And then, as he said in his stand-up routine, I'll put a link to his stand-up routine in the video description where he actually talks about this. But he does a great backstory about how that was just an offhand comment that he made, and suddenly half the world was saying Donald Glover should play Spider-Man, and half the world was saying Spider-Man cannot be black. It was a really interesting snapshot of how people feel about these comic book characters and race and changing them, etc. But anyway, there was so much attention to this that the story goes that that's what inspired Brian Michael Bendis to create Miles Morales. A fantastic character, really good character. If you're not reading the Miles Morales run of Ultimate Spider-Man, you are missing out on something. And you will see that he's not a token character, he's a very well-realized character, and has really come into his own as his own Spider-Man. So he's going to be in this animated series, and I think that's great. I'll also put a clip down below to the animated series. They have a preview. I have to say, I don't think Donald Glover's doing the best job. I don't think he does a good job with the stammering. It seems very put upon. And I never imagined Miles Morales stammering so much. He seems a little more cool, calm, and collected than Peter Parker. Peter Parker stammers. And that's one of the great things about Miles Morales. He's not a black version of Peter Parker. He's his own character. So I would like to see him be portrayed that way. Now, the reason I think this is exciting is because, as we all know, Sony is having a horrible time with their Spider-Man cinematic universe. They were all excited going into Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then lo and behold, the film just wasn't as successful as they hoped it would be or needed it to be. And now we're seeing Sinister Six become the new focus of them going forward, some female Spider-Man movie, a Venom Carnage movie, and then, of course, Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 3 has been pushed back to 2018. That's like 4 years away. It's very far away. But with Miles Morales, if all of you Miles Morales fans watch this character on the animated series and you show an increased viewership, you see where I'm going with this? Hollywood, which always cares about the ratings and the money, will maybe go, hey, maybe Miles Morales should be on the big screen. Maybe he can show up in one of these other movies we're working on. You know, it would be very easy to introduce him in Carnage versus Venom or whatever they're calling it, maybe this female Spider-Man movie. And, you know, as I think we saw from Captain America the Winter Soldier, it's no longer just having a movie that focuses on one superhero, but bringing a smaller group together for a solo-esque adventure instead of the giant group. So I think this would be great, and I'm very excited to see Miles Morales getting this kind of attention, and I'm curious if this is, you know, enough for you Miles Morales fans right now, and also for those of you who aren't aware of Miles Morales or haven't been able to really get behind the character, do you think you might be so inclined to do so now that he's getting more attention? And if not, what's it going to take for you to get into Miles Morales? All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story, oh, by the way, I have my notes here. Miles Morales also just popped up an all-new X-Men, which Brian Michael Bendis is also writing, so I'm very excited about that as well. All right, now this is a story that some of you will be very happy about. Oscar season is actually getting underway. Now, Woody Allen kind of introduced this idea of releasing Oscar films during the summer to get out ahead of the pack and to get media attention where you otherwise wouldn't be able to because it's so crowded in October, November, December. But it looks like some studios are starting to utilize that strategy with releasing their DVD screeners. Now, what that is, if you're not familiar, is, you know, a lot of times the Academy realizes that voters didn't get out to see their films. So there used to be, like, I don't know if they're utilized as much, but there used to be these screenings where if you were a member of any of the unions that could vote for awards shows, you could go to a screening and get in and see the film for free. But I think that that's going away and being replaced with, well, actually, I'm not sure. I've heard rumors that they're going more towards screenings because people are pirating the screeners. It's back and forth. But, you know, Hollywood's trying to decide what to do. But anyway, a lot of times screeners go out to make sure that these people who can vote get to see the film. So they send it to you for free. And it's actually a big thing in Hollywood where these screeners make the rounds, where if you know one friend who gets screeners, they go and they give them to all their friends. Although they are starting to watermark them because of the piracy, so you have to only give it to people you trust and make sure you get it back. And because if somebody finds that somebody else has your copy, you get in a lot of trouble, obviously. But so anyway, the reason I think you'll like this story is that the first screener to go out this year is Snowpiercer. I know so many of you like that film. I had a lot of problems with it, but I do think it actually has a hope for being nominated. Now, Radius is the studio behind it, and they are promoting this for nominations as director, screenplay. I don't think it has a shot in either of those categories, but here's where I think it has a genuine chance, and that's with Tilda Swinton for Best Supporting Actress for her role in the film. I actually can see that, and I think she does such a good job that I do think that it's worth the investment for Radius to send out these screeners early to get some momentum for Swinton going into the race. Tilda Swinton doesn't have a huge amount of luck with the awards these days. You know, we need to talk about Kevin was completely overlooked, but she, of course, you know, with her role in Orlando, she got her career by being noticed by the media, etc. So it's interesting to kind of see her fade away in that regard, and that she can't quite enjoy that same guaranteed attention that she once did. But she deserves it. She's very good in this movie. I'd say actually she's probably one of the high points of the film, if not the highest point. So I think she's an excellent candidate for a Best Actress nomination, and I'm curious to know if you guys agree as well. I would also say that Radius is missing an opportunity to push production design. That train looked very good, and the world building was well done. It was a little sloppy, but you know, I think there was a lot of attention at least put into it, and the way the train was laid out and imagined, and all the different rooms, and production design was a big part of that movie to show the different levels of the class system that had been built here on this train. So I think that that's also something they should be pushing, and hopefully, even though Radius isn't apparently pushing that in the materials they're sending along with the screener, people will just recognize that on their own when they watch the film. So I'm curious, do you think this has any shot? And also, do you think that the Academy members will put it into their players to watch it because it stars Chris Evans, who's actually pretty good in the movie? But do you think they'll have some kind of bias? But you know, that's why Radius is getting out so early, saying, hey, it's the only Oscar screener you've got. You might as well watch it so you can get in the mood and celebrate Oscar season beginning, and that you're on the list. You got one of these cool Snowpiercer DVDs. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, talk about not giving up and just fighting for what you believe is right, even though it seems the odds are against you. Well, Tom Hanks and Ron Howard are in that same boat as they continue to push their Da Vinci Code films. They're making the third entry, Inferno. They're going to start production in April, and Tom Hanks will return. He just closed his deal to return as Robert Langdon, and Ron Howard will direct. And this time, he's going to go all Jason Bourne, where he has amnesia, and so he must remember not his fighting moves. I don't believe Robert Langdon has any fighting moves, but he must remember his facts about all this cool stuff that he studies and researches, and also why he ever had the haircut he had in the first and second film. I hope he has a better hairstyle. I mean, it was so distracting. I love Tom Hanks. I think he's a wonderful actor. I got the chance to interview him for Captain Phillips. He is such a consummate professional. It was really, you know, you were just struck by what a professional he was. It's actually pretty rare in talent. They don't really quite know how to work the line. They get nervous. They hate doing it. Tom Hanks, you can see why he's a movie star. Occasionally you meet these actors and you go, you're a movie star. Also, unfortunately, Joseph Gordon-Levitt has the same kind of persona. However, that has really yet to translate for mainstream audiences to realize it. But maybe someday. But anyway, Tom Hanks, I love him so much. I think he's so great. I really love his work, obviously, as well. But I just think he's miscast as Robert Langdon. And I think Ron Howard perhaps isn't a great choice as a director, because these were such famous books, as you might recall, when they were kind of like the big deal. They were like the adult Harry Potter. And they just, while Harry Potter was well realized on the big screen, the Da Vinci Code books just simply have not been so. And I think that while people really got swept into the Harry Potter phenomenon, even if they didn't read the books, I think when people went to see the Da Vinci movies, they went, why does anybody read this? Why does anybody make a big deal about this? And I can tell you, because my father read those books, when he went to see the movies, he was like, wow, they really missed everything that made these books special. So I think it's interesting that they're moving forward with this. I think that it's kind of a waste of their time and money. But you know what? I'd always love to see people be able to turn things around, and nothing would make me happier, and I'm sure Dan Brown fans happier, if they somehow got it right the third time. Although it's also 3 strikes and you're out. But I'm curious, for those of you who are Dan Brown fans and have read these Da Vinci books, or even if you're not, will you go to see a third film? Can they still get you into the theater? Or are you like, hey, 2 times, that's enough, thank you very much? And also, what do you think could be fixed? Do you think that it's Dan Brown's material that just can't be translated to the big screen? Or do you think it's the casting? Do you think it's the choice of Ron Howard as director? Is it both? What are your thoughts? And do you think they should have just maybe rebooted the whole thing instead of going back for a third try with the same talent? All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Now, the viewer question comes from Rachel on Twitter. I am asking people to, I'm trying to get to 10,000 followers on Twitter. I'm pretty close, and as a kind of an incentive, and something I'm going to do on a regular basis going forward, because I don't want you to feel like you're following me just to get to 10,000 and then it will be meaningless. I'm going to, as soon as I hit the 10,000 follower mark, for the next 24 hours, and only then, some people are starting to ask me questions now, but at that point, and I'll let everybody know when it started, I will answer all entertainment-related questions, no personal questions, for 24 hours and 120 characters or less. So, but as I'm asking for followers, and I got a whole bunch right away, so thank you so much. Welcome to my Twitter account. But I'm also getting increased activity from you guys, asking me questions, saying hi, which is also so awesome. So I got this thing from Rachel, and Rachel was a follower from before. I have to give credit where credit is due. But Rachel tweeted me an interesting story and asked me for my thoughts on it, so that's today's viewer question, so to speak. So Rachel said, Grace, have you heard about this Lois Lane Fallout young adult novel? What are your thoughts on that? And as soon as I saw it, I was like, what? That sounds like a great idea. I'm a big Lois Lane fan. It's the only comic book my mother ever read. I still feel Lois Lane is a huge missed opportunity for DC to bring women and non-comic book readers into the medium. So I'm always frustrated when she's not well utilized. So at first, when I saw this tweet from Rachel, I was like, oh boy! And then I went and saw what the book was about, and I was like, I'm gonna bring down my enthusiasm just a little bit. I'm still have my fingers crossed this is successful, but I don't really like the approach they're taking. Basically, it's another, young adults only like to read about other young adults, so of course Lois Lane's going to be a teenager. She's going to be an army brat, that's how they're describing her. She comes to Metropolis, and of course she gets into trouble. And also she has a social media friend called Smallville Guy, who might be more than a friend, which of course, as we all know, is Clark Kent. I really hate it, as you might recall if you're a longtime watcher of my channels, that I don't like the idea of saying everybody knew each other when they were kids. I'm like, you know what, people meet new people, and that's kind of one of the exciting things of growing up and trying new things, is that you broaden your horizons in terms of who you know. And the idea that you're like, hey, look around, 13-year-old, this is everyone you're going to know forever. I think that's not like really a very encouraging situation. It's like the anti-Joseph Campbell, where as soon as you become a teenager, you realize you have these great powers and you're going to go on an adventure and you have no idea what's in store for you. Not, this is your group, this is the dynamic, and it's always going to be this way. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, so Lois Lane's going to have all these problems, and it's going to be, it's called Lois Lane Fallout. So I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if it'll succeed, because I do know that while I'm not a fan of this making these characters teenagers, Mary Jane Loves Spider-Man, a comic book about a teenage Mary Jane and her relationship with Spider-Man from her perspective, was a pretty solid hit. I don't think it was ever a huge hit, but it certainly had a strong fan base, and it's gone on for quite a long time, had a very good run. So there clearly is an audience there, so maybe even though I don't like this, people will tap into this Lois Lane young adult novel. Now, 2 other things I want to touch on. I would like to say I would have loved it if it had been adult Lois Lane, just written for young adult readers. I can dream, I guess. And I would also say if you're looking for a really good comic about, or a story about a strong female character in the comics world, I would say go pick up Darwyn Cooke's Selina's Big Score. It's a comic book, it's not a novel, but it's very, very good, and it's from her perspective. Batman isn't in it at all, as I recall. If he is, it's only for a split second. It's really about a big heist that Selina Kyle pulls off, and it's really well done. Darwyn Cooke is one of the great Catwoman storytellers of all time. But then the other thing I want to touch on is that apparently Marvel's already done this with very poor publicity, because none of us I hadn't heard of it at least, and that's already out there. They've published the She-Hulk Diaries and also Rogue Touch, and these books, by the way, have awesome covers. I love the covers. They really speak to me, and I don't know if those are teenage versions. I couldn't really, I was just skimming through this quickly to put the story together, but obviously they haven't really caught on because no one's really talking about those books. So I'm just curious to know, comic book readers, are you interested in reading these book versions of your favorite characters? Non-comic book readers, are you interested in these books? And if so, do you think they might get you into the comics? Because some people are saying the movies get them into comics. Will books serve the same function? Or maybe you like the movies, you don't want to read the comics, so maybe the book is a good way for you to continue with these characters without having to read comic books. It's just really crazy to see these characters represented in so many different areas, with apparently very little, someone overseeing it and making sure that all the different interpretations line up. They're like, whatever, if we have different interpretations of these characters, odds are fans will like one of them, but I'm like, well, what about the fan who wants to enjoy all of them? It's just very frustrating for me. But I think it's a really nice step forward, and also maybe, let's tie this into movies, because this is morning movie news, maybe this means Lois is going to be having a continued they're continuing to increase her presence in the movies. She had a large part in Man of Steel, obviously. Some of us have been wondering how big her role could possibly be in this Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, because they're introducing so many other characters. But if you saw the recent Ice Bucket Challenge that she and Henry Cavill took, she's clearly shooting stuff with him right now, and clearly I think has an action sequence, or she cheated. I don't know what was going on there, but you can see before the video, before she gets, when the video starts, before she gets the ice on her, her hair is already kind of wet. So maybe they were like, she's already wet from shooting the scene, let's do it now. So very interesting indeed. But I'm not a huge fan of Amy Adams' Lois Lane. I think still to date, Terry Hatcher is the best Lois Lane. It's a tough character to pull off. She often converges into annoying, but we'll see. Maybe Amy Adams will grow on me. So that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and the viewer question. Anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.